feel like at 12 we would avoid mass for the most part.
Sorry, say that again. I was just focused on getting the recording going.
Sorry. I think Sunday at 12 for a lineup is the best option. With a marching at 12:30 and then in the plaza by about 1. This way, I think we'll avoid most of the masses going with the different religious groups. I do think this will affect our attendance a little bit. Typically, this is like the Ragamuffins, like the first morning thing for people to do. Everyone's still around, and then they go out and have the rest of their day after the event.
Well, what has happened, do you know, with like Dad's Club and ASO? Have they had no sporting activities on the day of the parade?
They do try to avoid it, and they typically over the years it's been a mixed bag of participants from their groups. So I would let them know as soon as we finalize this that, hey, this is when we're doing it. So that maybe they can schedule around it a little bit.
Yeah, well, I mean, they could conceivably have some activities, practice, whatever, that morning, right? And then Saturday's up for grabs.
Right.
They normally schedule stuff. I mean, theoretically, they're not scheduling until after 11 on Sundays.
Right. But they do have some stuff on Sundays.
Okay, well, whatever. There's enough time for people to make it work. So
yeah, it kind of is what it is, right? I mean, we're not going to move the market. I don't think going Saturday, like really late in the day, makes a ton of sense. So, we try it Sunday, see how it goes, see what our turnout is, and evaluate. Maybe we do something different next year, or we try to change it a little bit so that we get the turnout.
Yeah, I agree. So, I mean, one good aspect of that is it's just the day before Halloween, so it's a little.
Well, yeah. I mean, the other option I thought about was marching all the way down to the rec, but I feel like that's a long march and we're blocking off some major roads more than we probably want to.
I think that's probably true. Although it's an interesting idea to think about. I think probably not for this year, but let's keep that.
Right.
And it's always been this way, and marching down Bedford Road is kind of the iconic route for parades in general. So.
Right. I wouldn't want to change that because I feel like it is a nice route.
Right, but it would be a longer route to make the turn on Marble.
Right.
All right. Well, so let's not do that this year, but I think that's an interesting idea. So, all right. Great. So then. The other issue floating around was the Panther Club scholarship question.
Yes.
David had strong feelings about that, and he is not here, but in his stead. So the issue here was how we are offering this, right? Are they full scholarships where the family would pay nothing? Or are they partial scholarships? Just for example, if we were proposing it as we were to the value of 2 full-time scholarships, which is what, about $11,000?
Yeah, for 5 days a week, 10,600.
So let's just round figures. The board was in agreement. We were willing to commit $11,000 to the scholarship program. So that would mean that if you gave a full scholarship, you could only do it for 2 kids. If you gave a full year half scholarship, you could do it for 4.
Do you have any sense, Mike, of what the demand might be for something like that?
No, and we really have not been asked recent years that I remember about that. That doesn't mean it's not needed. It's just the people, and it was kind of the same way with camp. There wasn't a whole lot of people asking. Every so often there was. And then we offered it and we had a number of people. I think this year we had less than last year. If I remember correctly for camp, I think we only had 4 to 6 people participate in the scholarship this year.
So based on what you know, for example, about those families, would you say that families in that circumstance could potentially avail themselves of Panther Club if they got a half scholarship and we were able to make it available for 4 kids.
Yeah, the only thing is that the timing, we've already started registration. So, to the point where if there's someone from outside that potentially wants it, currently we are actually closed out on 1 day a week for Panther Club. We've reached our max. So if there's anyone new, they may not be able to do the 5 days right away. But obviously we would offer this to anyone that's already currently registered and figure out how we would do payment going forward.
Talking, Michael, about Panther Club scholarships where we had said we would devote the equivalent of 2 full-time, full-year scholarships to the budget. That's $11,000. The question is, would that be 2 kids for the full year, or would it be 4 kids for the full year at half rate or some? So David had opinions about this. I had a chat with him. He was raising the question of whether we would float the idea that there were scholarships and then ask people when they applied to indicate what would be possible for them. Would they be seeking a quarter, a half, 3/4, or a full scholarship? So, I mean, we're not in the business of being able to sort of vet the question of people's financial circumstances. The issue is simply if you qualify for free reduced lunch at school, that we carry over to this. So I don't know. I mean, that would be one strategy to say, okay, that helps gauge the demand. Then, of course, the other issue that arises is if it ended up that there were more people who wanted it, then there were monies available. There'd be a lottery system. And then if the first person out of the hat was a family with 2 kids and there were 2 scholarships, would they get them both? Obviously, it doesn't typically help a family if one kid can go and the other kid can't. Another argument, I think, in favor of trying to find partial scholarships to spread it out a little bit.
Well, the other question too, just, I know we're mainly talking about 5 days a week, but there may be some people that don't need 5 days a week, but still would like the scholarship. So are we definitely not including them?
The 5 day a week thing was kind of what drove the budget of $11,000.
Right.
So it would be reasonable to say a scholarship of some scale would be available for whatever you want, right? 4 days, 3 days, certainly there are circumstances where families have a parent who's home on some days and not another, or whatever it might be. So
Right.
what if we said, hypothetically, that the template was to say we were offering a 50% scholarship on tuition for whatever program you chose, and that if that was insufficient to make it possible for you to attend, it might be based on the demand that there'd be available additional money. Does that seem reasonable? So, I mean, we might have a family that comes and says they have 2 kids, but the 2 kids would only go 2 days. And if they got a 50% scholarship, they could do it. Then X amount of money has been identified from our kitty and we know what's left. I mean, I don't want to create a circumstance where it's too
tricky,
complicated.
really having no idea of what the need is.
Right.
Right.
But I mean, we're in a circumstance where for day camp, we had allocated a certain budget and 2 years running did not use the entire budget, right?
Right.
So that may be the case here or not. Obviously, the cost of attending Panther Club for a full school year is much bigger than the cost of day camp.
So maybe no matter what we offer, like, let's say we offer 50% scholarship. It would be helpful to have some kind of survey that went along with that, or the.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, sort of piggybacking on
Just to
David,
try and gauge.
I thought David was coming, but
the need and
could-
interest.
I mean, could you, maybe you already said this, but could someone be asked? So we have the limited scholarship funds. If you're only offered 50% scholarship, would you still consider attending? Just get yes or no questions on that.
Do we want to know that, or do we want to just offer the scholarship out there? Like, and the way I'm looking at this at the moment is I would create a program in Community Pass where they would sign up, essentially being on a wait list for the scholarship, and we'd go down that wait list based on what they need. It's 5 days, 4 days, 3 days. They're getting 50% no matter what they sign up for. And as we go down the list, we use the money that's allotted and see where we stand.
That seems reasonable to me. And, you know, I think potentially we could say this is for the first semester, and the second semester we could rejigger it if it appeared that the demand was different.
Well, right, that this way it will show us a demand. They'll go sign up for this wait list and we'll try to work it, and we'll see a demand right away. We may not be able to meet everyone's need, but it's a start. I'm not sure what a survey, we're gonna do this either way. Does a survey serve us?
I don't know, I guess I'm
Yeah.
just wondering if there's any way to get more information about, you know, how many people there are out there who need some kind of financial
Right.
assistance, and how much they would need. I'm not sure. Maybe there's some other entity in the community, you know, maybe the churches or something would be a little bit more plugged in. I don't know.
Well,
This is for like, not right now, right? This would take a little bit more time to figure
The
out.
other issue here is that we've got kids in the school district who don't live in the village, right?
Well, yeah, that's actually, I forgot about that. Would this just be for the village again, like with camp?
I think it has to be.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It isn't that it wouldn't be great to help anybody, but I think it can only be people
Right.
who we can't obviously be in the position of offering taxpayer benefits even at a modest scale to someone who doesn't live here. I do
Right.
think it has to be. Michael, you,
I agree. And so I guess that would have to be in the sign up form and community pass, a yes or no.
Yeah.
For you village resident.
we
Yeah.
just look up as they sign up, because a lot of people don't even know. But when they sign up, we'll see their address and we'll confirm that they're in the village. That's what we did with camp.
I know they don't, I know well that a lot of people are not sure on whether they live in the village or in the town outside. All
I
right.
just wish there was some way to know, like, if we're offering a 50% off, is that just gonna be like?
I mean,
press
we
for
can-
50%?
I don't know if, I mean, I could put something out to the current people currently enrolled to Panther Club, send the message out, or some sort of survey to them to see what really is out there.
No, have they spoken to other parents?
I mean, I think it's reasonable to say we're gonna offer a 50% scholarship to have some capacity for people to offer comment if that doesn't make it accessible for them.
Yeah,
If we find ourselves, you know, well into September with families that say, we want to do this but can't, at a 50% scholarship, and we have money left, we could revisit it. But I'm sort of inclined to say, let's let this fall semester be based on a 50%. And then if it turns out that we didn't have enough subscription to use the amount of money we envision spending in this first half, we can rejigger it for the second half. But I do think the implied promise is that we would make whatever is available to someone the first semester also for the second. So if someone signed on, hypothetically, we have 2 kids, they're getting a 50% scholarship for whatever number of days a week they request, we would have the commitment to continue that so long as they remain eligible in the second semester. Seem reasonable?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, that sounds good.
all right.
And then, but if there's some way of gathering some information along the way, you know, just so that we can learn more about, obviously, how it goes, but also if we get any additional information about what it is that people really need, that would be good.
All right, so I think, are we clear? Did we come to a conclusion? I think we did, right, Mike?
Yeah, I just had to figure out how we're applying the payment. So I just have to talk with Noreen. We'll probably do it similar to camp, but it's a little different because it's 50%. So I just have to figure out how we are going to make that work in the system.
All right. So while we have you, you want to give us an update on the new Norway spruce project?
Hmm.
And I was looking forward to hearing about the flagpole too, whenever that,
Oh, you missed that.
oh, I missed the flagpole. Yeah.
So short version of the flagpole is that
Is it happening?
we are going to have a flagpole. We've been repeatedly requested by a
Oh, yes.
group of people about having a flagpole because the one at the rec center, which is visible, is too far
Yep.
away.
I've been asked multiple times by the same constituency.
The idea was Jeff thought it best to put it next to the football scoreboard because of the availability of electricity and to put a light. I think on the back of the scoreboard, you have to light the thing up.
Yep.
Mike was suggesting that maybe over by the baseball scoreboard would be a better place because it's a little more central, baseball closer to the baseball game, but still close to the football game. And it is at least farther away from the flag we already have.
Yes,
But Jeff he may have had various reasons. Mike's gonna go back to Jeff and inquire about exactly what the issues were. If it's 6 to 1, F doesn't the other, I defer to those guys. But I think in either location would satisfy the people that talked to me.
Yeah.
How about you?
sure, yeah. I would say that just wanted it closer and more prominent for national anthem time.
Okay,
And is the payment coming from the village or from
The village.
from the constituents who wanted it?
I mean, there have been a couple of people at one point that offered to contribute to it. It's not a huge amount of money. I think we just do. If someone wants to contribute, that'd be great, obviously,
Great.
but we're just gonna.
Do you think it would be done by football season?
We ordered the flagpole. It had a lead time. That meant it probably wasn't gonna be there for the first football game, but,
The lead time was about 9 weeks.
and we ordered it.
Yes,
So,
it was ordered a week ago, a week or two ago.
all right, so sounds like it'll appear somewhere during the season.
In time for the playoffs.
In the meantime, well, you're optimistic.
Of course.
I know I'm kind of just coming into this flagpole stuff. Do you know if the light was ordered as well?
I do not.
Okay, I'll talk with Jeff, figure that out, and we'll get one.
Okay, so,
Thank you.
Norway spruce, old one gone.
Yeah, so the old one is gone. We are gonna have our electrician set up the new electrical so that we can light everything we need to light in the future. And so that the electrical box is not directly underneath the tree, which is not ideal. It'll be on one of those planter boxes on that island. And we will run a tube so that we can snake electrical cord underneath right to the tree so that we can light it. As for the tree itself, we've reached out to 2 Prospero and Hardscrabble nurseries about their inventory and where their grower is located. We are going to reach out to the village arborist to see if he can come with us. Right now, Hardscrabble, their grower is about an hour and a half away. I forget the name of the town. Hour and a half away, upstate New York. So that's probably more ideal because the Prosperos is up in Rochester. So I'm not sure a 5-hour trip is totally worth
They're
it.
gonna say Canada or something. Yeah.
Do we have? I was like,
I'm sorry, say it again.
I didn't know we had a village arborist. There was I know Kathy Dinkle really wanted us to acquire one. Who?
Yeah, we have an arborist on that we use for pretty much every tree that we take down to just make sure we're justifying taking a tree down that we consult. He's a consultant.
Who is it?
I'm drawing a blank on his first name. His name's Savario.
Okay.
Information. I'm just drawing a blank.
All right, but he's qualified to assess the tree and make sure we're getting.
Yeah, and as far as I know, he's been the arborist for us for a little while now.
Just, I'm not sure we've used him in that way, and I just want to be sure we're gonna get the right tree. I say that in part because we certainly, various points, have gotten some street trees that, had bifurcated trunks or something a little too low, and that became problematic.
Yeah.
It's obviously in the case for Norway spruce, but
I mean, if we decided to go to Prospero and go to Rochester, we did look at arborists in that area to potentially see if they could identify a tree for us. So it could be an option, but I think, sending Mario with our arborist to check out a
I
tree
agree.
closer would make more sense.
I do agree. So, was there some talk of some sort of irrigation in that island?
Temporary irrigation so that we can keep that watered constantly. We're going to tap into the hydrant across the street so that we don't have to send the water truck every day. So we're going to,
That would be running across the road on the surface, or?
yes. So we're either going to block the road or people will be driving over the hose.
So, I mean, we can't block the road, and, or, I mean, we're talking months, some months, right? I mean,
Well, it still
obviously-
wouldn't block the whole intersection. You just wouldn't be able to go straight. You'd have to go further down and make the right.
So where's the hydrant?
I believe it's right on the corner of,
Anvil, and
yes,
so it's roughly where the light generator truck is during the holiday at Sing.
yes.
So I do not think it is viable to close that street.
Okay,
So if there's a way, and there must be a way, you run that across with some sort of protection that allows cars to go over it, right? I mean, they do
Yes.
that. They do that all the time when they're redoing water mains.
right.
Do you think that, and again, this complicates life, but is there any reason to think, I mean, a tree of that size, watering it with the water truck is probably not viable. So this would work for the fall in the time period when it's just been planted. And I assume in the winter, when it freezes, we wouldn't be doing it.
Right.
But in the spring, will we need to do it again?
Potentially that it would be depending on how the tree is doing. If not, the water truck, it can be viable, but it would, we'd have to arrange a schedule so that we could send, we'd probably send in the whole truck there throughout.
I don't know what the issues would be, and probably it's another huge chunk of money, but we should just make sure that we shouldn't be putting in some capacity to have permanent irrigation underground, trench the road and run it across. I don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question of that is, once this tree is mature enough, we're not going to need to water it. So are we spending money that's
I
eventually?
understand. I don't know what the right answer is. I do not think, however, I mean, you got all kinds of cars that are trying to cross there at Great Oak to go to school. They're not gonna go around to the point of the island and turn right again, right?
Right. So I will get a better game plan on that and get back to you as far as how we'll make that work without blocking.
Okay. All right. I think that was what was on our list. Is there anything else on your list, Mike?
Could I ask a couple?
Good.
No.
Yeah, Mike, while we have you, has there been any movement on either the potential netting soldiers and sailors on the Manville Road side for soccer season, soccer balls and other things? And any movement on the Roselle Park basketball courts? A couple things that constituents asked me about, and you and I talked about them a few months ago. Budget
So
time.
the basketball court, as far as the hoops and stuff go, we're going to refurbish those, paint the rim, backboard, and put new netting up. As far as the netting goes at Soldiers, you're referring to like the back of the the soccer net, like balls getting,
Correct, yeah, when we talked before, you said you would look into pricing for netting there along the tree line.
well,
on
yeah,
that.
we ended up extending that fence line. So we moved that current fence line further down, so it should block more of the balls from going into the road. As far as going over,
So something's already been, I guess I didn't know, but something's already been done that's different this summer?
yeah, we added some more fencing. I'll have to double check. We did a lot of fence work, and that was on the slate. And I know we did some fence work in Soldiers and Sailors, and the plan was to extend that further down so that we would avoid balls being kicked into the street.
Right.
For the most part, they're not taking over the fence, I would think, it's just past the fence or not.
I guess I don't, well, I have two questions. I don't know where they typically put the goal. If the, it seems to me like the goal was maybe even deeper than where the fence line is for the baseball fence. But
No.
I can't remember exactly. Is that not, for when
No,
modified?
it's in
A little
front of it.
display. A modified play. It primarily, I think, was a concern during modified games because at that age, there's a lot more force. Their shots on goal are going much further. But during ASO, they're not getting as much oomph on the ball, let's say. Okay, well, I guess I haven't noticed. So that's good to know there's movement on that.
Well, I'll get back to you tomorrow. I'll double check. I know that was supposed to be done. It's on the schedule to get done to extend that fence line. If for some reason it wasn't, I'll let you know and tell you when it's getting done. But I believe it was done.
Okay. And the Roselle is on for the fall sometime, you think?
Refurbishing the backboards?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm hoping to have that done by the end of the week. The weather
Okay.
held off a couple days because they didn't want to do it in the rain. But I've been telling Mario since last week, I want to get this done. So hopefully by the end of the week, that's refurbished, painted. We'll try to get some of the rust spots out by sanding them and then paint the rim, backboard, and put new nets up.
Yep. And the
On
surface.
another note about fixing things, we were out there today. We power washed the signboard at the edge of Wheeler. So we're going to power wash that and restain it and probably put a new roof on it because it's in poor shape. But if you drive by it, it looks 100 times better just power washing it.
That's great.
Which signboard?
The one in the
The main-
pocket park.
Oh, yeah, okay, got it, yeah.
There's probably nothing to be done about this, but just because we were talking about the island with where the new tree is gonna go, the two gardens that the garden club put in, complicate the sight lines when you're driving,
The
there.
stuff is too high or?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we should be aware of that. Like if you're making a left turn on Manville, going down Edgewood, for instance, you have to kind of drive into Manville a little bit in order to be able to see the cars. Just thought I would,
And what would the answer to that potentially be?
well, I'm loath to mess with with their plantings that they.
Yeah, but I mean, if it's in the way of
But,
drivers, we have to.
yeah, I would just, limit them getting too much higher, because the higher they are, the trickier it is that way. Anyway. Just
I can look-
something.
I can take a look at that and see if I understand, keeping them higher, is just maintenance, keeping the plants lower. We could also look at, moving them in a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, that would be a lot of work.
I
I
wasn't
think.
part of putting those in, so I don't know what the thought process was.
All right, well, that's on the radar. The other thing on the radar, and it, in one respect, probably more a public works problem, is a couple of people have commented about the path that runs from Campus Drive by the tennis courts on the inside of the stone wall over to
Mm,
Cary Court. Of course, that stone wall has has failed. A piece of it failed many, many years ago, and another piece of it has recently been taken down. So there's that blacktop path that's inside the fence. And I walked that Sunday after somebody commented, and clearly we need to come up with a plan of what to do about it.
This was the woman who said that somebody just dismantled the stone wall.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's
The path right inside the wall, in between the wall and the tennis courts, right?
I do wonder if we need that path.
I don't think we do. That was just gonna say, I'm not sure what the purpose it serves.
I think it arose many, many years ago when there wasn't a sidewalk. And the same issue prevails on the Foxwood side, on their property. Their site plan included this meandering path between the Foxwood condominiums and the wall, on the inside of the wall. And they're going back to the planning commission with a request to remove it, which I think is perfectly reasonable. Because there is a public sidewalk available now the whole length. So maybe that same issue prevails for us. I mean, who uses that, I wonder?
I thought, I looked at that a while ago and I talked to Mario. I was like, because I noticed it was in poor shape too. And I didn't really understand why it was there.
And it's certainly not ADA compliant. I mean, there are steps at one end,
Correct.
a fairly steep incline at the other end. So, all right. So, I mean, the other issue we're going to have to grapple with is what to do about the degraded wall. I remember many, many years ago when the first piece failed, it was very, very expensive to replace it in kind.
Mhm.
And I'm guessing it's only more so.
Yeah.
All right. So another item on the radar screen.
Yeah,
Wasn't a worker, a mason patching that whole wall just 2-3 years ago? Or was that the Foxwoods?
I'm not aware.
I'm sure
that
they
we
worked.
did.
I lived over there, but.
Well, I mean, the Kerry Court entrance, which is his property, he built those two stone piers. But I don't think we've been doing anything on our piece except taking pieces out when they were hazardous. All right, get back to being a other of two.
Real quick, since we're talking about paths, in case it comes up, I just want to let you know it's on my radar screen, is the path between Nanahagan and the old water department building.
Yes,
That is in pretty poor shape. So I'm eventually going to look into getting some pricing on what our options are there as well.
okay. Just, it's blacktop part of the way, but not all of the way, am I right?
It's blacktop almost the whole way. And I was asking actually Mario today, I was talking about it, is that the best option? Because it's so weaved in through trees and the roots have just caused the, I don't know if putting blacktop down again is gonna make it any better, or are we gonna damage the trees by taking it out? So looking at options, I don't know if stone dust could be an option for that path or
Some sort of compacted
way.
gravel, I don't know. All right. I agree to take a look for sure. Let us know what evolves.
Yep.
As you probably know, we have a project going on there in the coming months to rebuild the wall along the brook.
Right.
So it's not really germane to the path, but stuff going on in that zone.
yeah. I reached out to Eric about that because the CAC has some concerns about the approach that Jeff is planning to take. I don't know all the details, but
Okay.
he said that, with Jeff retiring, it'll be the next superintendent.
Yeah. I mean, I've stood there
Thanks.
with the neighbors and with Jeff a few times, and there's no doubt we have to do something that's
Yeah.
at risk of undermining the road.
Mhm.
So we can chat with them about what their issues were and what their concerns were.
Yeah,
And we're gonna cut across Lake Street with another drainage pipe as well to try to alleviate the flow. We scoped the pipes there with a camera and determined that there are higher capacity pipes on one side, and then it is reduced to a smaller capacity pipe crossing the road. So the idea is to check, Jeff has ordered, we already have it, an oval pipe, because it's a very limited capacity to get it in there with all these other utilities in the road, but to increase the capacity to get the water across from Warback Lane into the brook. In an Ida scale problem, it's kind of a perhaps a moot point, but in many other circumstances, it would help.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, anything else, Jeff? Mike?
No, I don't think so. Just to quickly recap Panther Club. So I'll put something together as far as what we'll put out before we just launch into a waitlist program. Let you guys take a look and then we'll put it out there.
I agree.
Okay.
And so the idea was to offer a 50% scholarship to families that qualified, 50% scholarship on whatever program they sought.
Right. Okay.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks,
All right.
Mike.
Thank you guys. Have a good night.
Take care.
All right, so then the other issue on our list here was the question of outdoor dining. So we have these 3 locations where we still have the concrete barriers up, Vela Kitchen on Washington Avenue, and then Dolphin South and Soul Brewing on Wheeler.
Mhm.
The Dolphin is not using it and has expressed they are not at all opposed to having it go away.
Okay.
Soul is obviously using it. Vela, I think, is using it some. Not much. Right, not tremendous. So it's obviously a parking problem. My guess is that the one that Soul would very much like to keep it. Dolphin doesn't care. Vela, I think. Eric may have talked to him. I had to Michael Madden. I haven't talked to him, and I can. I think he's glad to have it, but not likely to do what he did last winter when he put up those little igloo gizmos.
Mhm.
I think he has already given them away to someone, so I don't think he even has them. So on that side, he's taking up quite a bit of parking, right? 6 or 8 spaces, something to that effect. And on Wheeler, it's in the 5-minute parking. As of the moment, their capacity to do it expires in October, unless we extend it. And it would appear, although it's not certain, that the liquor authority laws apparently would allow us to extend the right to have alcohol sold and then consumed outside on a rolling basis. You can't, I don't think, do it on a permanent basis. So
If we eliminate the outdoor space, say for Vela Kitchen, do we have the opportunity to get it back to them in the warmer months? Or would that be the end of?
I mean, we always have the opportunity, I suppose. Part of the problem is, and it hasn't come up, we made this available in the midst of the pandemic, and rightly we should have,
Right.
but made it available in the places we could. There are a whole bunch of places that we couldn't help, like the restaurants on the block of Bedford where Freddy's now is, Little Mumbai, and Foley's,
Mhm.
Taco Project. Now, of course, Taco Project would probably always have space in the back.
Right.
But I guess I think that we probably need to let it expire in October.
For all,
For all of them.
I think there will be a lot of criticism regarding Soul. Because it's become it's just become a central place for people to congregate outdoors.
I understand that. And lots of it has been very good. I will also say there have been moments when it felt like a bar scene in the public realm.
Right.
But the question is, another thing one could think about doing is saying, okay, essentially we're giving up public property to one business. There could be some sort of a license agreement to make that more durable. I get that. I would say you are absolutely right, and I know where people have said, "Oh, this is great, don't get rid of it." And it is great when it is. I've had also a bunch of people say, "This is really a problem," and I can say, I have a ringside seat from my day job office. At lunchtime, it's it's a significant problem with cars pulling in to go to Sundance and then they're stuck.
Right.
That will be ameliorated somewhat if we got rid of the blocks in front of Dalton, even if we
Right.
didn't get rid of the ones in front of Solon. But similar, more complicated discussion is going on in the city right now
For sure.
about this same issue.
Mhm.
I think it was I heard it was the longest city council meeting in history.
I could imagine, maybe that's headed for us.
Public comment.
Yeah.
About outdoor dining.
About getting rid of it, yeah.
Well,
What,
I mean-
what to do, not, because it's not just keep it or get rid of it, there's a lot of options. And I was just in Boston, yesterday on Newberry Street, the same issue, I mean, they're all beautiful outdoor structures.
That we're building and then,
Yeah, and they're still there, but you can sense that
yeah.
some of them
Well, and we
might
have,
be going.
what about the fact that that route now is gonna have this place on Jackson Alley
Yeah.
that we sanctioned.
We gave them a license agreement
That's,
for adjacent property,
okay,
but we're not, again, we've done that. We do the same thing for craft and bistro
right,
in the old village, where you have adjacent property, it creates a great scene. We want that to happen, it's a $500 a year thing. It's not like we're charging any significant amount of money. But you're not in somebody's way. You're not taking away something.
right.
It's all walking.
Yeah.
But thinking historically, couldn't someone who wanted Seoul to have its space, say Jackson Alley was a street at one point,
It was, yes.
and then it became a pedestrian zone, and then it was more formalized as a pedestrian zone. And that there's a process where.
I mean, for
Then
example,
they start to feel normal.
It
Well,
seems
you know.
like someday Wheeler's gonna be pedestrian, right? Like,
so one could, let's just, sort of spitballing it.
Yeah.
You could say, if we were willing to give up the 5-minute parking entirely and have only the diagonal on the other side, we could make the sidewalks twice as wide, or more than twice, right? So you could end up with a circumstance where you had a very wide sidewalk all along that side of Wheeler.
Right.
Price paid is you would have eliminated what ends up being, I don't know how many it is, it's 30 spaces, 40 spaces, something like that.
Well, just on the one side,
The entire length of Wheeler.
I guess we can count.
that's all parallel parking on that side.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
I would estimate it more like 20.
oh, it's way more than. I think there are 20
It's no
from,
problem we can solve.
There-
We can
there are-
find it.
there are
We
20.
can quickly find the answer.
Whatever, it may not be 40, it's more,
Yeah.
whatever. That I can tell you is. I see the UPS and FedEx guys every day, and they already struggle with where to stop to drop off. And I can tell you also that the deliveries for whatever the restaurants, Black Cow, the other delis, etc. Those guys try to find a parallel space in the 5 minutes. They're often driving a box truck that wouldn't fit in the parallel spaces. So there are all those practical issues.
Yeah.
Sure,
In the city, it's a little bit more a draconian system where they say, well, okay, you drive a box truck, you better get here at 4 or 5 a.m. or whatever it might be.
Right.
That clearly isn't the game for us. But,
Right.
So another possibility is to say, look, the winter activity there is presumably lower, and remove them for the winter and be willing to revisit it in the fall to see how it goes. But people, I totally get that there is a lobby for Seoul, and I could argue we'd be one of the people in that lobby. But I also totally get that some of those things are things that people like, but they wouldn't like if it was harming one of their needs. I can tell you a couple of other storefronts have said, I get it, but this is kind of a problem, and at lunch nobody can get through, and cars are struggling to get around. And I can tell you again, I have a ringside seat on it. Those blocks have been
why?
4 or 5
why-
times knocked out of place by cars backing up and hitting them.
Why are cars struggling to get around?
Well, first off, it gets rather narrow, and if you're pulling out of a diagonal space behind there, it's tighter,
Mhm.
but also cars that park in front of Sundance are confronting, they pull up too close. They're at a point where their only way out is to back up in order to pull around the block. And sometimes they got too close to the block and somebody else parks behind them. We end up with a certain number of people trying to sort of double park and run in and get something.
Yeah, okay.
It's, look, it's a
I
sign
mean,
of,
Wheeler does tend in general.
yeah, it's not like all of those problems are related to those concrete blocks. They're not.
Right.
And there are gonna be cars there if there aren't concrete blocks, and that creates its own set of problems.
Mhm.
But what would you say if, for example, restaurant on the other side, the steak place said, okay, you did this for Vella, I want 8 parking spaces blocked off for me.
Well, so the use is just usually different for Bella versus Soul. That's right, the number of people.
I mean, the dynamics are different, I guess, based on how he's using it, right?
And the sense of openness to the community where if so at Sundance, when there's 25 people in line, and there's nowhere to sit at all. So if they want to have a sandwich, often they're sitting at Soul's tables.
I mean, they're doing that when Soul isn't open, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, right, yes.
But what-
Victimless crowd.
Well, also, and
Yeah.
when Alan wrote their letter, they said they have never asked anyone to leave their table.
Right,
You know,
right.
so
And I don't
that's
think-
very different than Bella, where you're having a
It's been,
$40 steak with a.
it's been a nice
you know.
thing. I agree. It's a nice thing. It had a lot of advantages.
Yeah,
I mean, to me, it feels like a situation where maybe it deserves some input from interested parties.
Sure.
for sure.
So we have to make a decision in time to extend it or not by October 15th, I think. Is that right? You know, Alyssa?
I don't.
I
It's
can't-
something like,
I remember,
it's alright, you can look it up.
We all read a lot about, urban life and trends and things like that. I can't think of reading any article that talked about trends of reducing outdoor space.
I totally get it.
Everything in the other
And
direction.
I would make that argument myself in many ways. I will say that it is, I'm sort of perhaps somewhat affected by the fact that I have this picture window looking
Right,
at
you're right
it
there.
all going on. It generates quite a bit of friction. Would there be no friction if it wasn't there? There would still be some friction.
What time of, because I feel like they close early enough, that there couldn't be many complaints about night.
No, the lunch, it's the
It's
lunch hour. It's the lunch of 2 hours-ish where I'd say.
So it creates friction about car movement, not about noise or.
Well, I mean,
drinking outdoors.
I will say that there is some noise and drinking outdoors issues that arise. I mean, obviously, Seoul is not a crazy place, but stuff gets a little, it's a bar scene outside. It depends on what's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some more complicated questions more broadly, not specific to those guys about site plan approvals and approved parking and, at what point are you taking up parking in some setting that was approved based on perceived demand and then offloading parking to a different place. I don't think that's so much a problem, and it's not a large number of spaces there. So, I mean, I will say that I would imagine that I'll call Michael Madden and see how he's feeling about it. That might feel if he wanted to keep it, and we said, well, no, we're going to take it away from you, but keep it for Seoul. I don't know how people feel about that and whether that feels like a fair decision. I mean, obviously, the physical conditions are different, and the number of spaces sacrificed to parking. Well, the parking is bigger on Washington than it is on Wheeler.
Mhm.
Right.
Could we ask them if they're interested in keeping the outdoor space to come to a work session?
Sure.
To me, it feels like it, I mean, I think personally, I'm inclined to support keeping the outdoor space. In general, that's my kind of go-to position, but at the same time, it seems like there are a lot of variables that need to be considered
There are.
in this particular case.
All right. So how about this? I'm going to talk to,
Popular.
we'll dig into the question of when the thing expires and when we have to act, if we want to extend it or not. And obviously we'd have to give Sol and Vela enough of a heads up if they were going to lose it on a certain date that was going to happen. I'll talk, I'm going to go over and talk to Alan anyway because of logistics issues about the block party thing. And come through that this week. So I'll also call Michael Madden and Vela and see if there's something. And then we can start. All right, it's 8:03. We should switch to our real life. Looks like it's not coming. Why don't you just slide on over?
I think it will, and I came straight, I just got dropped off here, so I don't have my laptop.
Okay.
I can read on
I can give you my computer.
whenever it's that time.
Or I can slide it over to you, whatever you.
So I came empty-handed.
Okay. You want to switch so that no people don't think that you are Michael, that you are David Vigilmore,
Very confusing.
unless you want to be David.
Well, if I say anything untoward, then
All right, you can switch it back.
tend to be the.
All right. We are declaring the end of our work session and beginning our regular meeting. Good evening and welcome. Today is Monday, August 22nd, Dog Days of August Village Board meeting with three of us present. David Benjamuri and Paul Alvarez are not here, and Eric Morrissey, our village administrator, is on vacation as well, ably represented by Melissa Boxton. So, this is our last regular meeting in August, and then we have two meetings in September. Did we resolve the question of which days they would be based on holidays and stuff?
Yes, they
So-
are. September 29th. And October 13th.
Okay. So that means our next regular meeting in September is the normal date,
Yes,
which is September 13, I'm sorry. And then our second meeting in September is switched from the Monday.
September 12, you mean.
I'm sorry, yes, I changed my calendar to have Saturday and Sunday on the right. I clearly need to send it back because I'm constantly making a mistake. Monday, September 12th is our next regular meeting. And then instead of Monday, the 26th, which would be the normal date, we will instead be meeting on Thursday, the 29th.
And the 13th, you said, is the subsequent one of October.
yes.
Okay. We figured that out. So as always, you can connect with our village board meetings via Zoom, and the Zoom link is available at pleasantville-ny.gov, both for the village board, but also for other boards and commissions that are available via Zoom. We're functioning in a hybrid environment, as we likely will continue to do, where we're meeting here in the meeting room, and you are welcome to come. But we're also operating a Zoom meeting so that folks who would like to participate can participate from home via Zoom. And within a short period of time, the video for both our work sessions and our regular sessions will be posted online at pctv76.org. If any of you actually watch our meetings on PCTV, you can give us some feedback. We're trying out a scheme where instead of depending on PCTV to spend their evening hours here filming the meeting, we're using our new little automated gizmo, the Owl, and are cautiously optimistic that it is good enough to provide a reasonable opportunity for folks to watch the meetings if they're interested. We still imagine that if we have a big or meeting where we anticipate a whole lot of activity, many speakers, etc., a PCTV would come as they have in the past to record it with a camera person. So let us know if you have any opinions on that subject. I had a couple of announcements to make. The first is to remind folks that our meeting on Monday, September 26th includes a public hearing on a proposed modification of our R2A zoning district. The proposed modification essentially clarifies what some have indicated was the original intent of the R2A zoning, which runs along Bedford Road, which was to permit two-family houses that faced Bedford Road, but not to permit as of right two-family dwellings on lots that are adjacent to Bedford Road, but don't have frontage on Bedford Road. So short version of a longer story, which is available online. You can check it out at our website and our Novus agenda. Again, you can get the link at pleasantville-ny.gov. Is that on September 26th, we will have a public hearing on these proposed.
It'll be the 29th.
Oh, right.
We're gonna move it to,
Oh, right. Of course, I just said that. I'm reading 26th and I just said it was the
we
29th.
just moved it.
Thank you, Alyssa. Public hearing is going to be on Thursday, September 29, regarding the modifications of the R2A district. I know that was a matter of concern to folks who lived on Clark Street. It's been a matter of concern to folks who lived in the vicinity of the Girl Scout building. And so just want you to know that we've taken this action in proposed form and have a public hearing on September 29th. And a couple of other announcements to make. One is, as you likely already know, the world of COVID has evolved in lots of ways that have been beneficial, but we're getting daily reports of positives. And so I encourage everybody to stay up to date with their vaccinations and stay vigilant to try to limit the possibility that they either catch it or give it to somebody else. Want to remind folks that if you care to and have signed up for our village news, that the police chief is issuing a weekly summary police blotter, and we'll give you a sense of the activities for the police department on a weekly basis. I think that's been really helpful and interesting to a lot of people. Big reminder that tomorrow, Tuesday, the 23rd, is primary voting day. You should all have received a card from the County Board of Elections indicating where you vote. So tomorrow is the final day, the actual election day. Lots of people took advantage, I'm sure, of early voting, but it's kind of a weird circumstance where, because of the whole argument over redistricting, there was an initial primary that took place in June, but this primary, which reflects congressional and state Senate races, is taking place tomorrow. So general elections on November 8th, as always, but primary is tomorrow, August 23rd. Please vote. I mentioned once before, and I will mention again, that the county is setting up a pair of public meetings to discuss the master plan for the Westchester County Airport. That has been a matter of significant concern to communities that are affected by the airport and are in the flight path of the airport. Parts of Pleasantville are in that category, and Newcastle is certainly in that category. So two opportunities. The most logical one for folks who live here is Tuesday, September 6th at 6 p.m. At the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. That's the old Reader's Digest Auditorium. It's up at Chappaqua Crossing, the area where Whole Foods is. You drive in from Bedford Road, make a right. Tuesday, September 6th at 6 p.m., an open conversation called What's on the Horizon for the Airport. If you miss that or can't attend, they're also going to have a meeting on Tuesday, September 13, a week later at 7 p.m. At Harvest Time Church in Greenwich, Connecticut. In part because Greenwich is obviously part of the flight path issue as well, immediately next to so many Westchester zones. So if this is of interest, again, Tuesday, September 6th, 6 p.m. at the Chappaqua Performing Arts Center. If you want to get any further details, you can go to westchestergov.com and just Google On the Horizon, which is the title for the airport stuff. Shout out to our CAC for all the good work that they have done. And I am forwarding to all of you the report that they plan this Wednesday, 2 days from today, from 5 to 6:30, to have a venture to clear vines and invasive plants in the Sawmill area located behind McDonald's in Thornton. I got
Yes,
that right?
in an area where they planted a bunch of native trees. So there are all these saplings there that will get overwhelmed by vines if the site is not maintained.
So it's just outside the village of Pleasantville, but very much involving our ecosystem and our wetlands, and that particular area. In between quite a bit of development, obviously the sawmill on one side, Sawmill Parkway on one side, and McDonald's and the adjacent commercial stuff on the other side, produced this sort of lost zone that the CAC with a raft of volunteers has brought back from the land of the invasives. So at any rate, that is Wednesday, August 24 from 5 to 6:30. They have a sign up that's available on Eventbrite. I'm guessing if you go to Eventbrite and search for invasive species removal, which is the title of their event, will get you. Does that work?
Let me see.
Nicole will tell me if that worked or not.
I've also put up, if you go to our Facebook page, the village Facebook page, I put the email address of the chair of the CAC, if you have trouble. Yeah, it's there. So if you're right. So it's under invasive species removal at wetland site. Wednesday, August 24th at 5 p.m.
All right, it's an hour and a half and a very satisfying venture. So we really appreciate people who waded in there and dealt with this in the past, and we'll appreciate anyone who's been doing it. So also wanted to report Pleasantville Strong reached out to us about an event that is taking place on August 31st, which is not a gathering, but instead a day to focus on awareness. It's called International Overdose Awareness Day, which is to acknowledge the global problem of overdoses, to honor lives lost, to raise awareness of overdosing and reduce the stigma of drug-related overdose deaths. So there are going to be some major public buildings around Westchester that are illuminated purple, which is the color of the day. We don't have the opportunity to light our building, but we're going to put up a couple of poster banners in our entry doors at Village Hall, reminding folks of International Overdose Awareness Day. So again, not a call to action, but a call to awareness. Last couple of things to mention. We anticipate relatively soon that the work at 70 Memorial, the building going up next to the post office, will have progressed to the point that the construction barriers on the street side will be able to be removed. When that happens, we're going to complete the last phase of our modification of the south end and put angled parking on that side of the street. You may have noticed that we already did that on the median side, the median between the commuter side and the regular side. We created some additional space by modifying that median. That space allows us to put angled parking on the other side of the street as well. So you'll see that going on in the next couple of months, we expect. And at the same time, at the Bedford Road end of Memorial Plaza, we are anticipating a September start for the contractors who are going to do our Manville Road project. That's a project funded by about $1.7 million in state grant funds and around $750,000 in village funds to modify Manville Road between Grant Street and Tompkins Avenue. There are some lead time issues about the traffic signals and lights that would occur at Grant Street, so we anticipate they're probably going to start at the other end. But you're going to see shovels in the ground and work going on. There'll be some disruption, obviously, for a while, but I feel confident that the end result of this will be both a more attractive village and also a much better pedestrian condition, especially for folks who are trying to cross from the Washington Avenue side of Manville to the Wheeler Avenue side of Manville. So good stuff coming. Our pool project is making progress. Drawings, I think, sent to Department of Health this week. Do we know that for sure? Alyssa, it's probably
I
not
did
in
not.
your,
But I will follow up.
so at any rate, we talked to Riptunis Engineering. He was about ready to issue the drawings to the Department of Health, Westchester County Department of Health, to get their review and approvals. Again, our original hope was that we might be able to get a shovel in the ground after this Labor Day. That clearly can't happen, but our goal here is to be able to put this thing out to bid in the winter, get a contractor on board by early spring, and then begin the work of assembling all the materials, including possibly ordering stuff and storing it at a site we would provide, so that we can have a regular pool season in our existing pool next summer. And then when we close on Memorial Day, summer 2023, be able to move forward with the construction right away. So it's an exciting project, and are hopeful that we'll be able to get that going. Then the last thing I wanted to mention is I attended an hour-long webinar with the Weather Service, the County Department of Emergency Services, and the offices of Congressman Mondaire Jones, which was essentially sort of a look forward into emergency planning for the coming hurricane season. And if one is seeking to maintain weather optimism, you probably shouldn't attend webinars like this. But what I can report is the Weather Service is anticipating something like a 65% chance that the hurricane and storm season will be more active than normal. So I'll getting some of those slides we can show on a future date, but I do want to remind people that the storm season of the fall is coming. We know from a difficult experience that it's possible to lose power for a long period of time. We hope, obviously, that that won't happen, and we've been, I think, careful to try to take steps that we can to minimize the chance, but the chance remains. So I just remind everybody to rethink the question of what they need to do to prepare their lives, their homes, their cars, whatever, for the potential for bad weather, and what they might want to do to have some plans in place in case power was out for some extended period of time, or even for a short period of time. And then lastly, a shout out to go to pleasantville-ny.gov, left column. You can subscribe to our Code Red emergency service. That allows you to get emergency messages that we may need to send in multiple ways. Phone calls to your cell phone, emails to multiple different email addresses. We learned the hard way during Sandy that there were a lot of people who were not in their homes because the power was out and had gone elsewhere, to friends, to hotels, to whatever. We didn't have an easy means of reaching them because we didn't necessarily have a mechanism to reach out to them via their cell phone, by text, by whatever. So sign up for Code Red. We only use it for emergency services. We will not send you ads for aluminum siding, but it really is a help if we find ourselves in a circumstance, God forbid, like we ended up with Sandy, where there were people who were out of power for 10, 12, 14, 17 days. There you have. Shout out to Michael, who set up a trustees table at the farm market.
Yeah, just want to say a word about that. It was really, we just responded to an invitation. So Kathy Sable from the Farm Market Board, former PTA president, reached out or pitched the idea, and we discussed that that since none of us are running for re-election, we had no risk of bringing any politics into the farm market, which is something that is off limits.
Running for re-election in November. We do have an election in March.
Oh, correct.
Right.
We're not actively, no one is actively campaigning for anything. So we thought this would be a good first trial run of something like this as a form of community engagement, conversation, information, dissemination and information gathering about public opinion. And I was there for approximately half the time, I would say. And as far as I considered it, it was a great success. So I know I handed it off to others, and maybe it fell apart after that.
When Pepper left, it all fell apart.
No, anyway, just joking. But I will segue from that to say that there were several very constructive comments, I thought, brought to the community table. And, one of them I would just say right here today, which is that the Pleasantville Volunteer Fire Department is very actively seeking new recruits. And the gentleman that I spoke with talked about when he joined the fire department, there was a wait list that was some years long to join.
Oh, really?
And that over the years, this has changed, the situation has changed. And it's not dire, but it is not, the trend line is not good based on a number of factors of shifting demographics and shifting, human relationships over time. And he asked me if the board would, light that, I was gonna say light that fire, but that is exactly.
That is the wrong.
Exactly the wrong
metaphor.
What should I say? Kick a spur, catalyze the engine. I don't know. If we could do anything to support awareness about the volunteer fire department and that.
We can post stuff through social media.
Yeah,
Let our communications people know that is one thing we can do, yeah.
For sure. And I'm glad that he came to the table, and that was a good reason, a good use of that, I thought. So there were other ideas that we'll discuss other times that I heard, but that's one I felt like is more urgent.
Yeah.
I agree. I thought it was very, very, I handed it off to you.
Well, not really.
Similar experience, So a
But it
couple
was
of,
great, we were
Yeah.
a good duo.
and a couple of things to bring up. There was quite a bit of discussion generated by the recent Examiner article, in fact, the cover article in the Examiner from last week, about the fact that the former Bank of New York property, which is up the hill behind Foxwood, has been vacated, sold, and is now being offered for sale as part of a potential assemblage of property that is roughly 21 acres. So it's a site that people don't have a lot of knowledge of because it's off the beaten path, up behind Foxwood on a site that was mostly occupied by the former mansion of Hiram Edward Manville. Really amazing series of stories about the history of Pleasantville when that whole zone, including the property that is the Foxwood condominium and the recently constructed Toll Brothers project, were all part of a 300 and some acre estate owned by Hiram Edward Manville, one of the wealthiest families in the nation at the time, and the keepers of the Johns Manville asbestos fortune. Long story, a lot of interesting stuff, but through a series of circuitous events for the last 20 or 30 years, a 140,000 square foot building at the top of that hill has been owned and occupied by Bank of New York as an emergency backup site, essentially a place where they could send people to operate if they lost the capacity to operate in their regular locations. They did that for a period of time after 9/11, but to my knowledge, that's the only time they did it. And otherwise, the building has been a very large building with only a very small number of people who are essentially caretakers of the building. They no longer need it. Bricks and mortar backup sites are supplanted by cloud services. It has been sold. It's now being offered for sale. I can tell you that the folks at Foxwood would very much like to see the commercial zoning that exists there. It's currently zoned campus office, which would allow office and laboratories to expire and to see that thing turned into some sort of a residential use. It's an odd and complicated site. It may take a while for something to happen, but I will say that it's a private property. Some folks have said, well, why doesn't the village buy it? It is far beyond our capacity to buy it. I think it's on the market for 20 some odd $1 million. And I will say that we do have some control over it because it is zoned campus office. It's not zoned for residential, and a potential residential use, if proposed by a buyer, would require a zoning change, and there'd be a thoughtful process to consider it. Certainly not in the interest of the village to let that fall into a disrepair, and not in Foxwood's interest either. So we'll see what happens on it, but there was a lot of conversation about that And sort of a segue to the conversation of why couldn't the village buy that? There was conversation about why couldn't the village buy the Girl Scout property? I think I touched on that recently, and I know that Dr. Jasad, the superintendent of schools, touched on it at a recent school board meeting. Both of us visited the building, have been through every corner of it. The school district hired their architect to go through every corner of it again. The bottom line was, given the needs that building has, pretty substantial renovation, roof, windows, HVAC, plumbing, elevator, electricity, ADA access, asbestos abatement, that the purchase and renovation is likely $8, $9, $10 million. That's a very, very large sum of money, and really not within the reach of the village or the school district at the moment, for a space that would be great to have, nice to have, but certainly not something we need to have. So that's where we are on that front. And again, the kind of issue that came up, and we had a good chance to chat about it with a whole lot of different people. Okay, anything else? Anybody else?
That pretty much covers it.
Okay. With that, if there is a comment of any kind from a member of the public, we have no one here in the room. We have only one attendee who is not in the room. I see no raised hands. Is there a motion to open the public hearing regarding introductory local law 7 of 2022 to place electric vehicle charging stations in Memorial Plaza?
So moved.
All right. It's a fight over who's first. All right, welcome to the public hearing. Here's the short version of a story that's been going on for a while. We are going to put two-headed charging stations in Memorial Plaza near the gazebo that will be spaces reserved for electric vehicles that are charging. So we need to establish some guidelines, both to set aside those spaces and to indicate how they will be used. So let me just give you a sort of quick summary of what's in this introductory local law. No person shall stop, stand, or park a vehicle other than an electric vehicle as defined in this chapter. There's a previous definition in one of these spaces. In other words, if you do not have an electric vehicle, you cannot park in these 4 spaces, even if they are otherwise available. And if you do have an electric vehicle, you cannot use it just to park if you're not going to take advantage of the charging. So you must be in the process of actively receiving a charge, plug in your car and be charging. The charging is going to be through a mechanism where you can either have an account with an app with the service provider or pay with a credit card at the site. So no permit is required, even though it's normally a permit parking zone. And the arrangement is going to be when you plug in your car, the hourly parking fee will be in an amount set forth in the master fee schedule. We have a resolution on that shortly, but that if you remain in the electric vehicle space for more than 30 minutes after it's fully charged, then there'll be an hourly fee to remain there, so that folks, are not in the idea is to create turnover. So folks with electric vehicles who would like to charge for a period of time can do so, as opposed to pulling in, charging for an hour and leaving the car for another 12 hours. So that's the plan. And that is the summary of what's included in this introductory rule.
Can I just chime in with a statistic, which is that for those, if anyone thinks that 4 spaces is too many, the electric vehicle market hit a milestone of 5% of the sales market for cars this summer. So you could want to argue that 4 is too few.
Yeah, well, I
Based
mean,
on where the trend
yeah,
line is.
the interesting piece is we have a few variables. It wasn't an easy process to get this in part because it required Con Ed running new power lines to provide more power to the area. Obviously, that dynamic is going to change radically in the coming decade. Ford, I think, is in the process of splitting their company into 2 divisions, one purely electric, one internal combustion engines. they, at the moment, I read the other day, they're not even close to being able to keep up with the demand for the new all-electric Ford F-150 pickup. It's obviously a big development in our world. And at the same time as that's happening, we also have witnessed through the pandemic, and now as we emerge from it, some changed habits about parking. We don't see anywhere near the same demand for parking permits after many years when we couldn't come close to meeting the demand. So all of this reflects an effort on the part of all of us and the village administration to try to respond to what's going on out there, respond to all of you about what you need and want, and to tinker with our rules and regs to try to make it possible for people to be downtown Pleasantville and take advantage of the services they'd like to have. And the key piece here, as reported, is that you can park there with an electric vehicle that's plugged in, but if the vehicle is no longer charging based on the flow from the device, after 30 minutes, there'll be an increased fee. I think it's proposed to be $1 an hour. We can report that in the schedule. So,
When are we expecting that these would be in place and operation?
so I think we're close.
I think there was a lead time on the actual machines.
Mhm.
I just don't know.
Okay, so
Okay.
at any rate, I can tell you, as you can imagine, we've had quite a bit of conversation, and Eric Morrissey has spent an enormous amount of time trying to sort through the variables here and what service provider to use and all of that. Shout out to Ben Sarabin, who's an advocate of electric vehicles and an owner of them. He's been very helpful to Eric and to all of us in thinking out how to make this work. So, any comment from anyone else or a comment from the member of the public? There being none, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. So let me share my screen and we will go to the resolution. All right,
Okay.
241, Nicole.
Whereas the village board of trustees seeks to place 2 dual port electric vehicle charging stations in the Memorial Plaza parking lot, and whereas introductory local law 7 of 2022 has been introduced setting forth the rules governing use of the 4 parking spaces. Whereas a public hearing concerning introductory local law 7 of 2022 was held and closed on August 22nd, 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that the village board of trustees hereby adopts introductory local law 7 of 2022, which upon its passage shall become local law 7 of 2022, to amend chapter 173, article 1, section 1, and create chapter 173, article 3, section 331.1, and chapter 173, article 7, section 76, concerning electric vehicle parking spaces in Memorial Plaza and the laws of the township.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. We need all 3 of us because 3 of us qualify as a quorum. So if fisticuffs break out on any subject,
It's true.
God knows what
Let's
happens.
see what happens here.
Anything is possible.
242, Michael.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby amends section 5 miscellaneous violations and fees of village's master fee schedule to add subsection 1 electric vehicle charging rates and occupancy fee for electric vehicle parking spaces as follows. Electric vehicle charging rates 45 cents per kilowatt hour. Occupancy fee $1 per hour, levied 30 minutes after vehicle is fully charged.
Is there a second?
Second.
So as reported, while you're there, you will be able to use the ChargePoint app or to pay with a credit card at the device. And it's 45 cents per kilowatt hour. There's no charge to park there other than the cost of the electricity until your vehicle is fully charged. And then 30 minutes after the ChargePoint device ceases to deliver electricity because your batteries are full, you'll be charged $1 per hour thereafter, which is a 25%, 25 cent surcharge over the regular 75 cents an hour that you might otherwise pay in a regular space. comments, questions?
In the future, we may adapt that 30-minute grace period.
Right.
They've been shrinking, I've noticed. You know, for the very, as the electric vehicle market has increased.
Yeah, I mean, one interesting
Some of them-
piece,
The grace
you
period.
know, you might have,
Some of them, I've been over to the mall where it's 5 minutes.
so, I mean, it's an interesting
Started charging right after.
story where, the dynamics of this use will be interesting to see how it plays out. You know, way back when, we would have imagined that these would mostly be commuters with electric cars. They would plug in and go to this, get on the train. I imagine there will still be some of that, and in that circumstance, if you're gone for 10, 12 hours, it's highly likely that at some point you'll be paying $1 per hour to stay there. But the other interesting piece, which is, you know, folks have said, and reasonably so, it seems unlikely that a resident who by definition lives very close to the train station is likely to avail themselves of this, because they probably could save a little bit of money using their rates at home. Two things to say about that. One is, depending on the situation you have at home, you may be running an extension cord out of the kitchen. And that is likely to be a slow charge mechanism as compared to the charging station. But the other point to make is that we've got a whole lot of folks who don't have a capacity to charge at home because they live in an apartment, they don't have a driveway, they live, for example, at a place like Foxwood where they're parking in a parking space that's reserved for them, but there's no capacity to charge. So there are a bunch of people who will be interested in this for longer term charging as opposed to just a quick top off.
Mhm. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what kind of demand there is and how it changes over time.
I think with our proximity to the sawmill, and it's iconic, we
Yeah,
have a lot of people who are not Pleasantville related at all. but
we're traveling.
Just on their map, and it's the closest one.
Well, and hopefully they stop and they eat at a Pleasantville restaurant.
That's exactly right.
Whatever it is. So, and again, I mean, the good news about this is we'll get quite a bit of information through the metrics that come back from the charging station. So we'll be able to see how it's used and how often and what the
It'll
dynamics
be
are.
the most detailed parking data we have.
Exactly.
Mhm.
We'll probably have more data than we have easy capacity to analyze.
All right.
All in favor?
Fine.
Aye, motion approved. Back to you, Nicole.
Whereas the property owner of 4 Springfield Court, Pleasantville, New York, licensee, which is identified on the tax assessment map as parcel 99.11-2-15.4, the property has requested a license to maintain a stone mailbox post in the village right of way on Springfield Court. And whereas the Village of Pleasantville licensor is willing to grant the permission requested by a licensee subject to the terms and conditions of a license agreement. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the mayor to execute the license agreement attached hereto with the property owner of 4 Springfield Court to maintain a stone mailbox post in the village right of way.
Is there a second?
Second.
So this, as perhaps most folks already know, in almost every circumstance, the first few feet, sometimes more than that, of people's lawns and driveways are actually village property. And in the village right away, in this case, the homeowner wishes to put a stone mailbox post in that area. Department of Public Works is fine with it, and so are we. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Michael, 244.
Whereas the Pleasantville Chamber of Commerce and the Village of Pleasantville seek to hold a community block party on October 1st, 2022, with a rain date of October 2nd, 2022, from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Washington Avenue, Wheeler Avenue, and within the Bedford Road parking lot. And whereas Washington Avenue from Edward Avenue to Manville Road shall be closed from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Wheeler Avenue from Manville Road to Bedford Road shall be closed 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And the Bedford Road parking lot shall be closed from 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. And whereas pending receipt of their temporary beer, wine, and cider permit from the New York State Liquor Authority, local vendors will be selling alcohol, beer, wine, and cider during the event within the defined area of the Bedford Road parking lot. Now therefore be it resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the Pleasantville Block Party on October 1st, 2022, rain date October 2nd, 2022, on Washington Avenue, Wheeler Avenue, and within the Bedford Road parking lot. Be it further resolved that the Village Board permits the lifting of Village Code 54-4, consumption in public spaces, within the described area of the Bedford Road parking lot for this date only, authorizes the village clerk to sign the New York State Liquor Authority's landlord consent form and issue an alcohol beverage permit. Be it further resolved that the police chief is authorized to post no parking signs during the dates and times noted in support of the event, and is authorized to tow cars in violation of the temporary restrictions.
Is there a second?
Second.
So here, as we have reported in the past, Paul is on vacation at the moment and could fill us in because he's one of the prime organizers of this in his role as vice president of the Chamber of Commerce. A great event, a much expanded event as compared to last year. I will say, my take on this is that we should approve this, but I am inclined to think that we may need to modify it. I have very significant concerns about the idea that the entire downtown would essentially be shut down from 10 a.m. It would essentially mean that there would be no passage on Wheeler or Washington, or Wheeler after 10 a.m. and Washington after 11 a.m. And so even though the event doesn't start until 1 p.m. Anybody else worried about that?
Yeah. I
I'm
mean,
not
so
concerned
this is-
about Wheeler as much, but.
Well, you say that, I mean, that's
That-
it's a Saturday.
So the farmer's market will be happening.
The farm market is happening in normally a busy time, say at Frank and Joe and Sundance. They would be, I mean, we would have essentially knocked out a very high percentage of the downtown park.
So they want to close it down 3 hours prior to give everybody time to set up.
Well, in the case of Wheeler, 4 hours prior. So I'm going to go talk to Alan at Sol on a couple of logistical matters about this block party. We'll talk about that as well. I mean, it just seems really hard, essentially, starting at 10 a.m. on Wheeler and 11 a.m. on Washington, but 10 a.m. in the parking lot between Holy Innocents and the bagel store. All of that parking would be shut down essentially after 10 a.m. So there's got to be a way to mitigate that. Would you think? I mean, it's not just parking, you couldn't drive.
Right, you shutting down the Bedford Road parking lot, I think concerns me the least.
I think that probably is true,
The
yes.
need for it the most, because when you.
And there's
look
the
at-
most
you look
setup
at the
there, yeah.
The layout that they're planning, yep.
Yeah.
If there's, set up all the electricity and all the vendors and the stage and everything, it
Mhm.
takes time.
Yeah,
But setting, closing Wheeler closing Wheeler, I'm not sure what all the setup needs are there.
Yeah, so
And the Washington is for the car show, is that right?
there's a car show over there. I don't know if there's any vendors over there. So anyway, here's my suggestion. Let's approve this. But approve it with the recognition that we're going to dig into this further and see what might be done to minimize the traffic impact. I mean, I do think obviously a bunch of these downtown stores that are unaffected areas are going to be involved in the block party, and that's a good thing, but
Right.
I think possibly some of them are not. And to knock out access to their businesses other than pedestrian access after 10 a.m. is tough. And the pedestrian access further affected by the fact that so much parking would be knocked out. So, anyway,
I mean, there will obviously be a concentration of people in front of their businesses, so it's not as if.
yeah, but I mean, the event doesn't start till 1. So my
Right,
real question is,
yeah.
there a way to mitigate this?
I believe on Wheeler, they did it so early, was to clear it out, because I believe that they have a fun zone that has to be set up, which takes a lot of time, and to get all the vendors to be able to set up.
And then there was also concern, I know, about people who don't get the memo, so to speak, and require tow.
Right, to try to, track them down, find people, have them move.
So again, I don't know what the answer is, but the event is proposed to be 8 hours. I wonder, is it conceivable to start it at 2 instead of 1 and push all that stuff back a little? I don't mean to get in the way of what clearly is going to be a great event. And I don't really have the answers, but I'll ask the questions.
I have a different question, which I asked Paul already, but he's not here, but I'll just say it out loud. I'm concerned about amplified music in that parking lot from 5:30 to 6:30, which is when there's a mass going on. And I wonder if they would consider, having a break from in the stage for an hour. I know we can't answer that.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Say it out loud.
I mean, it certainly is a discussion to be had. We ought to be mindful of all the neighbors who are affected in various ways, and that's one of them. And obviously they would be affected also by the fact that lots of folks who are attending church at that time park in a lot that would no longer be available. So
Yeah.
they just have to message that out to folks as well. So,
They were planning on doing that. I did update. It's on the event.
Yeah.
And they were gonna let.
But just knowing how amplification works. Being a fan of amplified music and church,
and masses.
I don't think they're gonna go well together.
Can you consult on a way to create synergy between the two?
I think it's as simple as there's an hour where there's no loud music.
I thought you were about to say there's a choir.
We could have a choir.
Yeah. All right, so recognizing that we have some concerns and may modify this, all in favor? Aye, motion approved. 245, Mike,
I think I just read that one.
you did?
Yeah,
Okay,
he gets the long ones. Resolved that the village board of trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to execute a stipulation of agreement with the Pleasantville CSEA and Michael Ferguson for a temporary
well, that should be for
temporary
temporary.
assignment of duties of the superintendent of public works effective August 29, 2022, while the village completes its search to fill a vacant position and until such an appointment is made.
Is there a second?
Second,
So as you, our regular viewers are already aware and readers of the Examiner are aware, Jeff Econom, our longstanding superintendent of public works, is retiring. And Mike Ferguson, who's the foreman in the highway department, will stand in his shoes for a period of time. The Pleasantville CSEA is the Civil Service Employees of America, the union that represents our non-uniform employees. Mike is a longstanding Pleasantville person and a longstanding Pleasantville employee, and very clearly highly qualified to fill these shoes. We anticipate that through the civil service process, we will be able to announce very soon a new superintendent of public works and a date at which that person will start. But in the meantime, we thank Mike for stepping into the shoes and, as is only fair, increase his pay for the period of time when he is serving in that way. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 246, Mike.
resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the minutes of the regular meeting held on August 8th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Comments, questions, corrections to the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the following budget amendments for the fiscal year ending 2023 as listed below. Budget transfers of the general fund, $1,070 from contingency to Clinton Street Center contracts, $1,732 from contingency transfer to capital. Increase of revenue and expense of the capital fund, $1,732. Interfund transfer from general fund for Memorial Plaza project, Manville Road Corridor project, local funds.
Is there a second?
Second,
So Alyssa, the title of this refers to fiscal year ending 2022, but the text refers to 2023.
It's 2023.
Okay, so you can change that title.
I can.
Mover and seconder, consistent with that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved. 248, Mike.
240. Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the abstract for payment of claims dated August 22nd, 2022 for fiscal year 2023, covering check numbers 104800 to 104909. In the general fund, $275,287.43. Water fund, $32,364.29. Capital fund, $8,340. Refuse fund, $17,355.04. For a total of $333,346.76.
Is there a second?
Okay. Sorry.
We need you.
I'm so used to like,
Yeah.
you know.
Comments or questions on the payment of claims? For those who are watching, as I've said in the past, if anyone's watching, you can go to our Novus agenda. You can get to it through pleasantville-ny.gov and click in payment of claims and see every line item if that's of interest. All in favor?
I
Motion approved. 249. Nicole,
resolve that the Board of Trustees has received and examined a copy of the Village of Pleasantville Justice Court audit for fiscal year ending May 31st, 2022. All fines identified therein have been turned over to the proper official of the village and authorizes the village clerk to file the audit with the Office of Court Administration pursuant to section 201-A of the Uniform Justice Court Act.
is there a second?
Second.
The audit is attached. We have all received and reviewed. Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 259.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby accepts the resignation of Lynn Parsons, Virginia Baird, Robert Santander, Bonnie Bop, Eric Casarella, Jonathan Hidrogo, Juliana Rush, and Teresa De Palma, Recreation Assistant, Panther Club, effective June 24th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's the normal course of things. Some folks who were in our employee records as Panther Club assistants decide not to come back. You'll see shortly the addition of new people. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 251. Nicole.
Resolved that the Village Board of Trustees hereby authorizes the village administrator to sign the fee exempt application for the Clinton Street Center's renewal of a food service establishment permit with Westchester County Department of Health for the period of October 1st, 2022 to September 30th, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Standard operating procedure to maintain our food service license. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 252. Michael.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees hereby approves the request for a film permit for Jacob Burns Film Center for Thursday, September 8th, 2022 for filming outside the Jacob Burns Theater located at 364 Manville Road with a drone. Said approval is subject to the submittal of credentials for a Federal Aviation Administration certified operator and the submittal of insurance certificates naming the village as additional insured and aerial aircraft liability coverage. And be it further resolved that the village police chief has the authority to cancel the event due to adverse weather conditions or other safety concerns.
Is there a second?
Second. Do we know what this is for?
I don't know exactly what it's for, but obviously they want to get some video footage, no
They're
doubt of
filming
both.
their marquee. They're doing like a welcome video
Hmm.
for people who are at Burns.
Great.
Nice.
Okay. Good stuff. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. 253. Nicole.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the mayor's appointment of William Serlin to the Conservation Advisory Council effective August 22nd, 2022 and ending April 4th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
William Serlin, I guess, has been helpful for quite a while.
Yes, he's been leading an inventory of the trees, which is something we're trying to do to get a sense of, you know, how many, what species, where they are. So he's based in Pleasantville, but he's also an undergraduate at Cornell.
Great.
So good place to be when you're studying trees.
Yeah, on private property as well, or just on public property?
Well, on private properties to the extent that they sort of are public facing, I mean, I don't think, you know, it's going into people's backyards and so on. There's a new software that we're using that locates them via GPS. And there've been a few hiccups with it. So we just had a CAC meeting and I was talking about maybe reaching out to some other municipalities who are starting to do this kind of work and see how they're doing it. But he's been very helpful and he's gotten other high school students, other young people involved with this process as well, which is kind of exciting.
That's great.
you know.
Yeah, it's great. All right. Thank you, William Serlin, for all you have done and all you will do now in your formal capacity as a member of the CAC. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion approved 254.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of Thomas Royman as a part-time school crossing guard, job code 0141, at the hourly rate of $22 with an effective date of September 6th, 2022. Said appointment is subject to a probationary period of not less than 12 weeks to a maximum of 52 weeks.
Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you, Thomas Royman, for joining us for this. As you know from previous meetings and from emails and postings, school crossing guards are urgently needed. I think we can use some more if there's someone out there. If you're interested, contact the police chief. All in favor?
aye.
Aye, motion approved 255.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of the following recreation assistant, job class code 0269, with an hourly rate of $20 effective August 30th, 2022. Candace Crowley, recreation assistant. Do I have to read?
No.
Okay. Kiara Edwards, recreation assistant. Daisy Fernandez, recreation assistant. Miriam Nefta, recreation assistant. Kelsey Tiffany, recreation assistant. Chantel White, recreation assistant. Alexandra Sensota, they're all recreation assistants. Kaylee Ivy and Sean Kelly.
Is there a second?
Second.
Welcome to this group, to our Panther Club team. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Did you say aye?
Aye.
Yes. We need you.
I said it, I said it too quietly.
All right. 256, Michael.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hourly rate increase for the following recreation assistants Panther Club effective August 30th, 2022. Carolyn Casarella from a rate of $20 to $20.50. Renee Friedman from $20.50 to $21. Anita Levine from $20.50 to $21. Diana O'Halloran from $25 to $28. Philip Salamone from $20.50 to $21. Parvin Saeed from $20 to $20.50. And Marianne Tiffany from $20.50 to $21.
Is there a second?
Second,
So those variations reflect a general increase, in some cases seniority, and in some cases broader responsibility. All in favor?
aye.
Aye. Motion approved 257.
Resolved that the Board of Trustees hereby approves the hiring of part-time available recreation assistants for youth programs. Dylan Thomas, I'm sorry, not Dylan. Sorry, I was confused by the going back and forth. Okay.
Sorry, let me slide back. I'm messing. There we
Dylan
go.
Austin at an hourly rate of $15. This is all for the youth recreation program. Matthew Brock at a rate of $15 an hour. Jared Garcia at a rate of $50 an hour. Mia Lopez at a rate of $15 per hour, and Alexandra Sensota at a rate of $20 per hour.
Is there a second?
Second.
So again, the variation reflects what those folks are doing. In the case of the $50 an hour, that's a specialized program, not a regular scheduled employee. Those come at a higher rate because they provide less hours and specific skills. All in favor?
Aye.
I motion approved 258, and that's the last one, but it's long.
Here we go, settle in. Whereas in the early 1930s, the town of Newcastle developed a water supply from New York City's Catskill Aqueduct with an aqueduct connection and pumping station. This supply was later increased in the late 1950s to include a connection from shaft number 3 of New York City's Croton Aqueduct. And whereas the town's water supply system was chlorinated in the early years until regulatory changes in the 1980s made by the New York State Department of Health, the Federal Safe Drinking Water Act, and ultimately the EPA's surface water treatment rule, required filtration of nearly all surface drinking water supplies. And whereas under successive town governments, work began to comply with the filtration requirements of the federal and state regulations, which required implementation of a pipe relining project, construction of a pump station, and ultimately construction of the Millwood Water Treatment Plant, which was put online in August of 1993. And whereas the location for Newcastle's Millwood Water Treatment Plant was selected because of its proximity to both New York City's Catskill and Croton aqueducts. The Catskill Aqueduct connection is designed as the primary water supply, with the Croton Aqueduct water supply as a standby source. And whereas the Millwood Water Treatment Plant has a design capacity of 10 MGD,
million gallons per day.
per day, and is a regional facility, with the village of Pleasantville having 15.83% ownership in the facility, and other agreements to provide wholesale water with the town of Yorktown and IBM, the town of Mount Pleasant, and the town of North Castle, including emergency use provisions for the village of Mount Kisco. And whereas the 1997 intermunicipal agreement between the town of Newcastle and the village of Pleasantville sets forth the village of Pleasantville's 15.83% undivided interest in the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. And further notes per section 5, the capital costs incurred shall be paid for by the parties on the basis of reserve capacity and for the village of Pleasantville. This reserve capacity, as per the 1997 intermunicipal agreement, was identified as 1.9 million gallons per day. And whereas the Millwood Water Treatment Plant serves an estimated 17,116 Newcastle residents, approximately 9,500 Pleasantville residents, 2,068 residents of Mount Pleasant, 360 residents of North Castle, and roughly 1,500 residents through other wholesale arrangements. Newcastle's distribution system consists of 120 miles of underground water mains, approximately 1,334 fire hydrants, 4 million gallons of ground level and elevated storage located in 4 storage tanks, and 5,547 metered customer connections. And whereas the town of Newcastle, as majority owner and operator of the Millwood Water Treatment Plant, is required to maintain its water treatment facility in regards to water quality, as well as maintain its distribution system, including buildings and mechanics, to ensure acceptable levels of service. And whereas the roof of the Millwood Water Treatment Plant is the original roof to the building, which is at the end of its useful life and is causing interior damage during inclement weather, such as saturation and deterioration of ceiling tiles throughout the facility. And whereas the town of Newcastle, in proceeding with the roof replacement, recognizes that this project is considered a type 2 action in accordance with the New York State Environmental Quality Review Act. And whereas the town of Newcastle has received responses to a request for proposal to replace the Millwood Water Treatment Plant roof, which has resulted in a total cost for design and construction of approximately $2.7 million, whereby the town is preparing the submission of a New York State intermunicipal water infrastructure grant, which could pay for up to 40% of net eligible project costs. And now, therefore, be it resolved that the Village of Pleasantville Village Board supports the submission of the town of Newcastle's New York State infrastructure grant for up to 40% of the net eligible project costs of the roof replacement project at the Millwood Water Treatment Plant.
That was beautiful.
So this
If
is so
there's
that
a
we
whole
support
second,
the
give me a second.
submission for the grant.
Yes.
Second. Okay.
Yeah, so the short version, I mean, one interesting thing about this long report here and resolution is that it reminds folks of a little bit of the history of all of this, where up until the agreement in 1997, the village of Pleasantville did not have a filtered water source, and the village, with the village board at the time, with the leadership of then Mayor John Nona and trustee Bernie Gordon, negotiated a deal to buy in this 15.83% of the plant that Newcastle had built, and in so doing, both Newcastle and Pleasantville and some of the other entities that receive water from it have a very high quality filtered water source. There are lots of other communities that didn't do this, didn't make that investment at the time, and have struggled for years since under waivers from the Clean Water Drinking Water Act. So that's all good news. The short version of this very long story is time to replace the roof. It's a whole lot of money, and with the support of both owners, including Newcastle majority owner, the village, they'll apply for the grant.
Yeah.
All in favor?
I,
Aye. That is the last of our regular agenda items. Anybody have any new business of any kind?
One very small question.
Yep.
Something that came up at the community table.
Yep.
The 3 parking spots in front of Valvoline on Manville.
Yes,
You picture those?
Yes.
Metered spots?
Yeah.
Is that all owned by us?
Yes,
yes.
That's all owned by us, right?
the other 12 hours.
There was a proposal and the person emailed me as well, that I thought was very well worth considering in light of the Manville pedestrian safety project and all the redesign.
Mhm.
The person proposed that everyone who lives on the west side of the sawmill experiences extreme traffic backups at that spot that would be almost entirely mitigated if those 3 parking spots were eliminated.
You mean to create a second lane
To create.
so people wouldn't get
And-
stuck at the left turn?
And we could just develop wiggle room even at that intersection and with the redesign, there might potentially be even more of a need for that. And considering that it's only that very small number of spaces, I just wanted to, I know since we're starting the Manville project right away.
Yeah,
that's the
so we
reason I
can
bring
look
it
at
up.
that. Yeah, I mean, that project doesn't extend on that side
It
of
doesn't.
Grand Street, but I mean, the idea of removing spaces doesn't require a physical change other than removing the meters and changing them. It's great. It's great.
And the constituent has been taking photos of the backups.
So how was the backup alleviated?
yeah,
Anyone who wants to turn right from the Memorial Plaza or go straight has wiggle room from everyone who's trying to turn left
Mhm.
to get on the sawmill.
So that's interesting. So, I mean, the other possibility is, and we can look at that, I do wonder whether one might do that on an interim basis, because there's so many people trying to go through the village and get back on the sawmill on Grand Street to avoid the single lane
Right.
section.
And this person has not lived here very long,
Yeah.
and maybe this is a problem that's exacerbated by the sawmill.
I mean, certainly, there are so many things that have changed all at once,
Yeah.
right? There's
Yeah.
that crazy construction project that goes on forever, the single lane, the change in people's commuting habits. I can report my anecdotal experience is in some respects even far from Pleasantville. Traffic is worse than it was pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
I think in part because you got a lot of people driving, who got used to driving, and there's been reticence to take public transit. So, yeah, so let's look at it.
Just want to get it out there.
Okay. Any comments from anyone in the public? You're there, raise your hand if you have something to say. I see none. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
second.
all in favor? Aye. Good evening. Thank you for your attention. If we have it, we will be back to you in September on Monday, September 12th. Meanwhile, have a great rest of the summer. And a great Labor Day week. Go to the pool.
And vote.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's the most important thing. Tomorrow is primary. Please vote. Thank you all.